Traveling the Vortex.
Doctor as he travels the vortex and arrive at episode 577, where we'll start a war with a monkey-mannered oaf. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn. How is everybody
How's it going?
doing?
No!
Everybody's getting well now, finally, since we had to miss actually an extra week than we anticipated because we all had illnesses last week. Well, not all of us, but some of us had illnesses last week.
I was fine.
So, yeah, Keith was okay.
Keith so very much. Don't lump me in with you, outright monkey.
I had my own problems. Thank you very much.
Yeah, right. Well, and we've been in sub-zero temperatures for the last 3 days, too. So
yeah.
Keith, tell everybody about your pipes. Everybody loves when we talk about that.
I had some pipes freeze. Yeah, I got down so cold Saturday night that pipes froze, and we woke up Sunday morning without water. And there was no water anywhere. So it wasn't like a single pipe. It was coming in at the main. And so I thought I knew where the main was and tried to put a hairdryer to it, and it didn't work. So we eventually called out a plumber and found out that I didn't know where the main was after all, and he put a hairdryer to it, and now we have water again.
Of course, all of our southern U.S. friends and European friends are going, what? It can get cold enough for your pipes to freeze? Yes, indeed it can. And all of our...
The low is -11. It's pretty cold.
All of our friends up north are going, yeah, we know this. That's why ours never freeze, because we make sure they don't.
Well, and
they deal with it all the time, though.
For all of our European friends, Keith, explain what -11 is on the Kelvin scale.
You mean on the Fahrenheit or the Celsius?
Celsius.
Celsius.
Kelvin would be quite low.
Well, and this is only our second winter in the house, and it didn't get below 0 or in single digits last winter at all.
Yeah, we at best got double
we had
digits
no idea
last
that.
year.
Yeah, we had no idea that it would potentially freeze. Now we know and can easily take care of it with a nice space heater.
Have you guys seen the video from the Chiefs game where they open a refrigerator and take out a bottle of water, and it just instantly starts to freeze from the top down? Like the whole thing, it takes like 10 seconds, and you have a frozen ice pop instead of a bottle of water. It's insane.
I didn't see that. That's crazy.
It was funny to see the clips of Andy Reid's mustache all frozen.
All frozen, yeah.
And the Mahomes helmet got so cold that it shattered. Well, it didn't shatter, but it took a chunk out of it. That's crazy.
Hey, props to the journalistic prowess of the photographer who got that shot.
Yeah, newspaper photographer. Well, besides headaches, did anybody do anything, watch anything? I watched a whole bunch of stuff, so get ready.
Go for it.
All right, I'm going to go through them. I'm going to go through them quick because what happened was I don't normally set New Year's resolutions, but I sort of casually made a promise to myself that I would watch more movies this year, and so I got started on the 1st. I'm not these aren't daily. I'm not trying to do one a day like some people are, but for the first 7 days I did one a day. I'll go through them real quick and just do quick little mini reviews of them. The first one I watched was Expendables or Expendables 4. I hate when they put the letters in. I don't know why. Who thought putting the numbers in the letters was dumb? Was a smart idea. It's stupid. But anyway, with Expendables 4, it's an Expendables movie. I think they're sort of stretching with their ideas and they've certainly been going downhill since the first one, but it was good. It was good fun. I mean, it's nothing to write home about, but enjoyable, stupid, dumb action film. Watched The Haunted Mansion, which I absolutely love. That thing so totally got overlooked over the summer, and with the actor strike, and nothing against the actor strike, but unfortunately, it just did not get the publicity that it needed because it's a great film, and it's on Disney Plus now, so check it out if you haven't seen it. Blue Beetle, I saw. I thought it was kind of middle of the road as far as a superhero movie. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the characters. It's got a lot of heart. A lot of people compared it to Iron Man, which I think is way off base. I mean, the only the only thing similar is it's an origin story and he has an iron suit or a suit. But overall, I thought it was a relatively original idea and had a lot of fun with it. I watched an old one called The Tall Guy with Jeff Goldblum,
I
and
never have seen that one.
and was written by Richard Curtis, and it's one of his older ones.
Oh,
Kind of a quirky film, not what I would expect, especially from Jeff Goldblum. Back in those days, he was still doing things like The Fly and Jurassic Park, things like that. This is kind of a romantic comedy, but with a British flair to it. So you kind of have to have an appreciation of some British humor, but overall, it was a really funny movie. I watched Bullet Train, which is a bunch of fun, man. That's just stupid.
Isn't that a
fun.
blast?
Yeah, it's just, and it's I'm not a big fan of hyper violent films, but it does hyper violence without really trying to throw it in your face. You know what I mean? It's almost appropriate gratuitous violence, if that's a thing. It does the violence really well. I mean, and actually what it does remind me of is an anime. It's like watching a live action anime. It's very, very much just a fun film. Loved it. Elemental is probably one of the best films I've seen. Well, this year, which has only just started, but I think in all of the last year, probably the best thing I've seen. One of the best things I've seen. That thing's really good. Another one
Pixar film.
Yeah, another one that got
Okay.
another one that got totally overlooked. Kind of Pixar back on its game with that one, since they've had kind of I thought, a few dips in quality recently. This one's back on par with a lot of their early stuff. Watched Lift. It's just called Lift. That's the new one on, I think, Netflix with Kevin Hart, and he leads a team of criminals, or it's kind of an Ocean's 11-ish. Ocean's 11 on a plane, basically, is what it is. It's not a great film, but it's not bad either. It's a lot of fun. It's got some good characters in it. And then the other really good one that I watched was The Holdovers with the Paul Giamatti. No,
Paul Giamatti.
Yeah, Paul Giamatti. And he plays a curmudgeon old professor that ends up staying behind at a boys' boarding school because there's a couple, or I guess there's 5 kids that aren't going home for the holidays, and then a couple of them, or 4 of them actually do, and he's stuck behind with one, and it's really hard to even explain, but it's a really, really good movie. Had a lot of heart. I thought it was a little slow at first. Pacing was poor at the beginning, but when it finally gets going, it's really, really good film. And
I loved how retro it was.
Yeah, well, that's its best quality. Is it's set at the very end of 1970, and it is shot like a 1970s film. Watching it, you would
that's cool.
Watching it, you would think you're watching a film that was shot in 69, 70. Oh man,
Like it
was
opens with a 1970s
impressive.
logo.
Yeah.
And you're
Well,
like,
it's
oh,
got
okay,
the
cool.
it's got
But then
the
it kind of keeps going.
It's got the old, remember they used to have the RPGG bands on the front of the movies before they started? It has the R-rated 70s band on it too, which was really cool. Yeah, of all things, that was its greatest accomplishment, because then it really puts you into the story, because it's like you have been transported back to 1970 and you're watching this film. You're right. I shouldn't undersell that, because that was really, really cool. Anyway, that's so far what I've watched this year.
Nice.
That's a busy month so far.
Yeah. Well, and it's going to keep going too, because like I say, I plan to watch more films this year.
Well, I've also knocked out a bunch of stuff. Again, won't cover everything, but we went out to the theater on New Year's and saw Wonka, which was
how is it?
really good, really enjoyable. I was very skeptical, because you're treading on sacred ground with Gene Wilder, but it's different enough that it doesn't offend the palate, as it were, and it makes several nods to the eventual, because it's a prequel and it's a musical, and it's different enough that it's not your Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but it could eventually become Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which I thought was very cool and clever. And a lot of charm to it. We also watched Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which it's okay. It's an Aquaman sequel. about what you'd expect. So nothing to write home about. I knocked out a couple of former Best Picture winners with The Broadway Melody and Mutiny on the Bounty, which I'd never seen either one of those.
Mutiny on the
Broadway
Bounty
was
is
okay.
really good.
Mutiny's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was kind of mad that I hadn't seen that one earlier. We watched the new Chicken Run Dawn of the Nugget.
It's on my list.
For those of you with kids, I can heartily recommend that one. I actually think I liked this one better than the first one.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah. That seems to be a divisive opinion of mine.
Well,
but,
that's I'll have to let you know. The first one is on probably in my top 15 animated films of all time.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd go that far with it. So I'll be interested to hear what you think about it. We also watched Peter Pan and Wendy over on Disney Plus, and I was actually pretty impressed with that one. It's not top tier live action Disney remake, but they did some interesting things with the story that I really enjoyed, and it was well shot. We watched Good Burger 2. Probably the less said about that, the better. Good Burger 1 is for what it is.
Good Burger 1.
It's kind of an iconic masterpiece of its time, but yeah, it's Good Burger 1, and yeah, this is Good Burger 2. And then with the snow, Shai had kind of been hankering to watch a superhero movie, so we wound up doing an impromptu MCU rewatch starting on the 9th with Captain America. And they I don't know if they're still upstairs watching, but we had finished Black Panther tonight, and now they're up there on Spider-Man Homecoming, so kind of mowed through a whole bunch of that. And I also watched Taylor Swift The Eras Tour, which I'm kind of coming to this from the reverse. I know there's all these Swifties that are coming into the NFL fandom because of the Taylor Travis Kelce thing, and I'm kind of going the reverse. I'm going into the Swiftie arenas because of that. And man, I think I might be a Taylor Swift fan now. This was a heck of a concert. Visually, it was stunning, but there was a lot of great music and a lot of songs that I don't know that I knew were Taylor Swift, that were kind of like, oh, this is recognizable. I know this one. So yeah, it was enjoyable all the way around.
Another one on my list.
And I'm on the last disc of the third Dresden book. Things are not looking good. I mean, there's more books, so obviously Harry's going to get out of it. But when you're trapped in the vampire's basement, and it just doesn't look good for you in the last disc, So,
what about you, Keith?
I watched season 2 of What If, which I thoroughly enjoyed more than I thought I would. Every time I went to start an episode, I was like, "Oh, there's a what if. Should I watch it or not?" Yeah, I guess so. And then I really enjoyed every single episode almost.
Yeah, I've heard this season's much better than the first season.
Yeah, the ideas in them I think are just a little bit more out there, so that makes them a little bit better. Unfortunately, the season doesn't quite tie together as well as I think season 1 did, but the resolution and the big quote-unquote bad guy of the season wasn't as good. But the standalone episodes, I think, are a little better because you got kind of Captain Carter doing the Winter Soldier thing. You have it kicks off great with Nebula basically doing a Blade Runner type story as a cop as part of the Nova Corps. And it's thoroughly surprised me. There's a really fun Die Hard spoof in there in the middle of it, and some pretty interesting stuff. I liked it.
Hello, fellow time travelers, and welcome to the Doctor Who Target Book Club podcast, the only podcast to discuss, in story order, all the Doctor Who novelizations. My name is Tony Whitt, and every 2 weeks or so, I'm joined by a 2 to 3 person discussion panel, including our so-called expert who's been a Who fan since 1979. That would be me. We also get the views of intermediate, casual, and novice fans who either have never seen the show or who have never read these books until these podcasts, including
Dalton Hughes
and
Alison Fitzsafried.
You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you find good podcasts, or even ones like ours. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point podcast.
This is Tim Trelaw.
This is David J. Howe.
I'm Peter Purvis.
I am Sadie Miller.
This is Lauren Cornelius.
Larry, it's Fraser.
For all things in the Doctor Who collecting world and beyond, the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. I'm Larry Van Mersbergen, your host, and I've been collecting for 42 years. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex on the Direction Point Podcast Network.
All right, well, let's move on to news.
First up in news, Pencil Tip Publishing has announced their next charity, their next Doctor Who themed charity short story collection, Sarah Jane Smith, Roving Reporter 2, the sequel to the 2021 book, which we all reviewed. The guidelines are now available on their website if you want to go take a look and submit stories. So they're asking for submissions at this point.
Woohoo!
It's pretty exciting. I think we all pretty much enjoyed that book. So.
Oh yeah, that was a good collection.
I'm looking forward to another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, volume 2 should be good. So, Glenn, you want to take this next one? Because I see the details, but I don't understand the details.
Well, this probably should have fallen more in the rumors category rather than news, but I stuck it in news. Supposedly there's been a leak of what the next Doctor Who spinoff that's being worked on. It's alleged by a CV sheet that was released from somebody working on the show that there is a spinoff series called The War Between the Land and the Sea. And it's in pre-production. Shooting's supposed to start in Cardiff on March 4th of this year. And the plot summary is a spinoff of the fantasy action saga Doctor Who that will feature the Sea Devils. So a lot of people have speculated that this might be the unit spinoff that everybody was talking about. However, it has been brought to light recently that, on good authority, this particular series, which I think I saw is supposed to be 6 parts, or just 6 episodes, is actually set in the past. So nothing like pre-unit days. So right now it appears to be Sea Devils is the only thing that's connected to it so far. There may be more to it. And this, again, this was from somebody's CV, so this may not be at all accurate, but everybody's kind of running with this, saying that this is probably it. I think The War Between the Land and the Sea is a little bit of a long title. I think it could have been The War Between Land and Sea, would have been even better.
But it wouldn't be Doctor Who without all the thes.
Well, no, that's true. And
it should have just been Land Sea with a big X in the middle.
Well, that's a little too movie. But yeah, I who knows this? I think there's something probably here. I think there's a nugget of something here, but who knows what it'll end up being when it finally comes out.
Yeah, if it's just now going into production, and they've already started filming on Shooty's second season. And that's who knows how far off. This was probably a while still. Well,
I have a feeling, although it does say under cast and crew that Phil Collinson's producing, Vicky DeLoe is producing, Julie Gardner's producing, and Jane Tranter is producing. Russell D. Davis, writer. He's the only writer on here, so he may be writing a good chunk of this. There's a good chance, though, that this will be a whole different Bad Wolf crew that is shooting this, so they could be shooting this.
And if it is a different set, a different crew, it could be parallel with it. That's a good point.
And if they're not bringing any of the main characters in, if it's not going to be any of the unit things, because we still suspect that unit's going to have definitely Kate Stewart, I think, has all but been confirmed that she'll be in the unit spinoff. They've obviously set up some seeds for them to bring Donna Noble back and have Catherine Tate be in it.
They haven't officially announced the spinoff, right? I didn't miss something.
No, they have not officially.
That's still rumored.
That is highly speculated. Let's put it that way. The reason why I say that is because it's not a rumor though, because I think it was last year around March or April, RTD sort of confirmed it without confirming it in one of his letters that he writes for Doctor Who magazine. So that's why everybody's been pretty firm on the fact that Unit will have a spinoff, because he's sort of confirmed it without confirming it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's been a thing for, well, the last at least 8 months, so that we've known about.
I'm not poo-pooing the idea either, but let's be honest. When you talk Doctor Who spinoffs, a Unit series, that's kind of low-hanging fruit.
Well, yeah,
that's kind
absolutely.
of the obvious choice to go first, you know.
But I'm not sure that's what this will be, so this might be another thing altogether.
I forgot to mention that the other thing I watched was the Imagine profile on RTD, and he talks in it about, which it's really good. If you guys can watch it, you should. He talks about his writing process, and I have no doubt that he could have written season 14, the Unit spinoff, season 15, and this in that amount of time, because he can just sit down and just, if he has the story in his head, it's just a boom, boom.
It's just plotting it out,
and yeah, it's literally just getting the ideas and words down on page.
Yeah.
He says it sounds like he rarely has to do many rewrites or second drafts or anything like that.
What's what he said in the Writer's Tale, the book that came out after.
Right.
It was pretty much, he said the same thing. It's very few times does he have to go back and rewrite anything that he's done.
And he made it sound like, and talks that he percolates on it until he doesn't sit down at a keyboard until he's ready to put it all down and commit it. So It's a Sin was in the back of his mind for a long, long time before he actually sat down to write it. Same with Years and Years. It was just kind of back there, he was developing plot and story and all of it in his mind before he ever put pen to paper. And so once he does, it's quick. So if that's been going on with this, I wouldn't be surprised.
Right, yeah.
Must be nice.
Well, certainly, if they actually do get underway shooting this in March, and it'll be no time before we start getting some confirmations on it actually being a thing.
Some sort of set pictures or something.
Right. So that's that. But the big news of the week.
Season 15 on Blu-ray.
Yay! Finally. Because somebody said it's been almost a year since they announced a complete collection.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Wow. And then, of course, Peter Davison. What season would it be for us? I'm kind of all thrown off now. Season
2?
Is it 2? Yeah. Season 2 is finally getting a release in April in the U.S. They already got it in the U.K. at the end of last year. We're finally getting that. And then I did see that there's some pretty good confirmation that we will be getting the Tom Baker, what will that be, season 5? Is that what this one is? In June. So
that's pretty quick.
It sounds like June 3rd. So, although I did read that
which is interesting because I don't think they actually officially announced the date in the UK for
this. They have not. That's what's strange about this. And they did say that they had been sitting on announcing this for a long time, but they had some things they had to get cleared up and finished before they did. So I think the best part about this no, I don't think that was it. I think that I think that's been probably shot for a while, but because in fact, was it Louise Jameson said on Twitter that she had been not able to say anything about this for a very long time. So I get the impression she shot this a long time ago.
Well, yeah, she shot this during the 50th anniversary. It's just taking that long with the effects work.
Well, that trailer was just amazing.
Yeah.
Loved that. And now, as we know, they're all canon because RTD confirmed that.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Okay, so the trailer, the guy that comes and gives you the thing and says the doctor wants you to escape, blah, blah, blah. That's the one that we just listened to. I'm terrible with names. Wasn't that the agent that was running around in the Gallifrey Time War box sets?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Uh-uh.
You know who I'm talking about, though, is the one. He started off. He was kind of a young kid.
The Resistance
the wet behind
guy?
the ears. Yeah.
No. Well, maybe it is. I don't think it is, but maybe it is.
I'll have to do some research now. I was under the impression that was a nod to.
I'm going to turn my
We can at least look at the credits.
I'm going to turn my captions on here and see.
Oh, hey, Elton John got an EGOT.
Axton is the character's name.
Axton?
Yeah, Axton. Wasn't there an Axton in the Big Finish stuff?
I'm going to the wiki. Hold on.
Keith, Imdb.
Wiktiba.
Not according to this.
No, yeah. This is his first appearance. And only appearance so far.
Although knowing what kind of, I guess not fully knowing what happens, partially knowing what happens to Leela at the time more makes me wonder where this is supposed to be placed.
Well, you've gone on?
Well, I listened to all of the John Hurt stuff.
Oh.
And there's Leela stuff in that.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yep.
But not in the Gallifrey stuff, so I'm not sure how that's supposed to work. I'm just going to tell myself that this is before some of that stuff.
Could be.
Although, didn't they talk about... This is the final battle, so never mind. That can't be.
Yeah, you're right. This is the final battle.
Yeah, I'm sure that...
time's rewritten, that's fine.
Before being written, it was... Somebody called Big Finish and said, where are you going to leave Leela at the end of her journey? Because we're going to pick up there.
Well, I'm pretty sure they didn't, according to what Keith's saying.
Nope, not that I remember.
Pretty sure they didn't.
Maybe they did some timey-wimey stuff that I don't remember. Well, I got the impression that the stuff that's still coming out is earlier in Leela's timeline.
Well, maybe Bi-Generation changed all that, too.
Oh, that's true. Bi-Generation throws everything in the...
Right.
Spanner in the works.
But anyway, yeah, so exciting stuff. Collection season 15 and Baker season 5 for us. So,
and gorgeous artwork. I have to say that.
I think this is the best cover I've seen so far.
You guys posted that, and I looked at it and went, oh, that is so cool. Did not even remotely put two and two together that would have been new DVD or Blu-ray artwork. It was just a really cool poster.
Good art.
Everything sort of had blues and purple hues to them, and this is kind of the first one that's had.
This is kind of orangish.
Yeah, an orange yellowish palette. So,
which is odd considering that the Invasion of Time cog wheels are so prevalent.
Yeah,
and yet they would have been silver.
Yeah,
they're silver, right? Yeah, that room was silver, and it would have fit more with the old color palette, but I'm not complaining. It's gorgeous artwork.
It's gorgeous.
Hi, I'm Rupert Booth.
I am known as Paul Ferry.
And my name is Barry Williams.
Together, we host Time Ram.
Time Ram's a cruel mistress.
It's a random number generator.
That also.
We roll a number from 1 to 13, and that's our doctor. Then 1 to 300 for the story, and then we ram them together.
Even if it doesn't make sense.
Cruel, I tell you.
Time Ram, putting the wrong doctors in the wrong stories, so you don't have to.
You're listening to Traveling the Vortex.
You are invited on an adventure across all of time and space, in a completely random order. It's the Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. Jump in the TARDIS with your hosts,
Eric Gulbranson,
Asad Kheshki,
and
Matthew Kressel.
Explore Doctor Who TV stories, audio adventures, and books, both novels and non-fiction. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. It's the entire Whoniverse on shuffle. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast is a member of the Direction Point Network and is available about once a month wherever you find your podcasts. You are listening to Traveling the Vortex.
we are going on a journey, a very long journey, through the world of the Target novelizations in publication order. Every week, we are looking at a new book, talking about Terrence Dicks, Malcolm Hulk, and all our Doctor Who novelization friends. Whatever you do, keep turning the pages. This is Jason Miller of the Doctor Who Literature Podcast, a member of the Direction Point Podcast Network, and you are listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point podcast.
All right, well, let's move on. We don't have much else to talk about this week except for our reviews. We are continuing Series 6B. This will be part 6 of our ongoing series of Series 6B. Just a reminder to people, this is, we're following along on the second Doctor's adventures with Jamie, presumably set after Season 6, when he's been recruited by the CIA, and they've picked Jamie back up to continue some more adventures. And first up is Helicon. I keep wanting to do, what are the Jedi? Jedi Helicon.
Yeah.
Helicon Prime.
It's been a long time.
Sorry. Is it Helicon or Halcyon Prime?
Oh, maybe it's Halcyon. No, he was saying Helicon. He was saying Helicon in the.
This story is Helicon.
Yeah, he was saying this. He was saying Helicon in the story.
Okay, I apologize, Keith. Go ahead.
It's been a long time since Jamie McCrimmon remembered anything about his travel doctor, but his visit to Helicon Prime just won't stay hidden. But why remember their murder investigation now?
Yawn.
I'm kind of the same. Wow. I'm right there with you, Sean. This was one of those ones. As I listened to it, I found myself spacing off, and I'd have to back it up and listen because I'd missed pieces of it. So, this was Fraser's first outing with Big Finish. I did not realize that until I was looking at the notes. Wow. Yeah, this is the very first time he reprised the role as Jamie in Big Finish. So, I guess I should say this, according to the complete guide or the complete adventures, this takes place right after the second Doctor and Jamie's appearance in the Two Doctors. So be just kind of put this in perspective of how things are going chronologically for the Doctor and Jamie. This is right after the Two Doctors, which we've already reviewed, so we weren't going to touch it here.
And to be fair, the performance of Fraser Hines is still great. Yeah, he's got, he steps very easily back into the role of Jamie, like he never left. And as we've said before, he does a very good Patrick Troughton. So when he's like, yes, Jamie, and doing the...
Although I think he's gotten better at it since.
He's gotten a lot better at it.
I think a whole lot better. I expected that better version of it.
Yeah, he's gotten a lot...
a little disappointed.
Yeah, he's gotten better with his second Doctor impression as he went. And I think he's more energetic as Jamie later, too. This one, that was one of the things I didn't like about this, and I think this is why it was a snoozer for me, is I didn't feel the energy from Fraser that I've felt in audios since this. And which is odd that I thought that this time, because maybe, I guess, this being his first one, this is my second time to listen to it. I listened to it like, I don't know, well, it would have been back in early days of this podcast. So 13 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, I listened to this, and I didn't remember a lot of the plot, but I don't remember it being so dry and boring as it was this time. And I remember thinking that he sounded more like the Doctor back then. I remember thinking that he fell back into the role of Jamie better back then, but listening to it this time, now having listened to him in other audios, is a whole new world for me on this, because it didn't feel like he had the energy in portraying Jamie. He did fine. He did a great job. He does spectacular. Don't get me wrong. I'm not putting down his performance. It's just not where I'm used to it being. And I think part of that comes with him doing it more with Big Finish and falling back into that role more wholeheartedly and getting used to being in that role again, I think is why he progressively got better, to the point where I absolutely enjoy his performances. But this one was just a step back from that, a slight step back, but a step back for me. And I think that was part of the reason I felt like it was a bit boring.
Well, the story isn't overly gripping either. I mean, they do spend a lot of time sitting around not doing much.
Yeah.
And normally if it's a Jamie and Doctor sitting around not doing much, it's going to be pretty entertaining. And I think part of why that's not as entertaining is he hasn't quite fallen into the rhythms of the role again or the Doctor again. The story itself is just kind of plotting and predictable, even as far as, who ultimately is behind it all. I kind of saw coming from a mile away.
Yeah, I sort of did too.
Almost when they introduce her, I was like, oh, she's going to be the bad guy.
Yeah. Of course, some of
you
that.
know, all those times that we've sat around and said, wouldn't it be nice just to have an episode where they go on vacation and nothing bad happens to them? I take it all back. Forget I ever.
I never thought that was a good idea.
I take it all back. Forget I ever asked for that because, we get to read the lunch menu now. It's like, oh my God. I mean, at one point I was standing there because I was Bluetoothing this to my my Alexa device, and I was standing in my kitchen screaming, nobody cares, move on.
Well, what's crazy about this is it's it's 2 parts, and it ends up being roughly an hour long, 2.5 hour stories, or 2.5 hour parts, and it still feels too long.
Yeah.
And I don't often say that about an hour story. Sometimes an hour story, you're into it and you go, oh, I could have used more. This one, I was like, I could use a little less of this one, I think.
And there are some cool ideas with it.
Yeah.
The sonic sculpting was kind of a neat idea, although not thoroughly explained well enough, in my opinion.
Agreed.
The idea of Helicon Prime is interesting, and how they were slowly pulling it out of the state of grace, essentially, that it was in. Had the makings of a great story and great drama. It just, the ultimate, and the idea that what they were actually after was knowledge and not some actual wealth. I appreciated that aspect of it too. It's just, the bad guy is trying to get this because he's the sole survivor of this expedition, and it's just no one really cares, and there wasn't enough of a weight to the story to make me invested in it.
It feels
I was standing at a folding machine while listening to it, and I'm struggling to remember it.
Well, it feels like one of those stories where somebody comes up with a concept and an idea, and they think, oh, this would be a really good idea. And then when they sit down to formulate the story around that idea, or to get to the big reveal or the end point of the story, it kind of feels like they're just kind of filling in the holes now at this point to get to that point. And that's how this whole story is kind of structured that way.
Yes, a lot of that.
Now, it also feels like this is Big Finish's first foray into trying to do something season 6B, but also playing it
not
a little
fully committing to it.
Well, because they're playing it safe. They're playing it safe, and the reason they're playing it safe is because Jamie makes mention, or the Doctor makes mention, of Victoria being off away studying graphology, right? But this is also the throwaway line from the 2 doctors that she's away studying graphology. And originally it was thought, before we started getting into the second Doctor adventures, this originally was believed to have been when Jamie was picked, and I suppose you still could shoehorn it in there, but when Jamie was originally picked up by the CIA, that this was a false memory they put in his head so that he would think that they were still this was his time still traveling with Victoria in the TARDIS, and she just happens to be away from there. Now, that's only ever mentioned in the 2 Doctors, and it's only ever mentioned in this, and it's not ever alluded to later in the quote-unquote season 2B or season 6B materials, at least to my knowledge so far.
Is the black hole in that list of season 6B stuff?
The black hole. I don't think
it's a story called The Black Hole.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
Okay.
And
yeah, it
Is
might
that the one
be
with the robots?
no.
I think it is not, because it actually have
It looks like it
Victoria.
might actually have. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think originally
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Originally, there was a connection that Big Finish was making there, because they were just kind of halfway going with the season 6B thing, but I think that's been retconned since then. So
it seems like this story, the black hole, is trying to make the line in Two Doctors make sense and not have it be season 6B.
That's correct. Yeah, I believe
they're
you're
going
right.
the reverse.
Yeah,
they're trying to undo season 6B.
I
for
think
the
you're
Two
right.
Doctors.
Now that you say that, I think I remember that being the case, that Big Finish was trying to retcon the line. So anyway, most people that adhere to the season 6B idea, this is where they place this, and they say we say this is firmly placed in season 6B. We just have to take that throwaway line as it is.
that one short story we read, early on, of them even wiping the Doctor's mind after every mission.
Right.
I mean, it's all of this is pretty wibbly wobbly, and you can easily make anything work just by going, they implanted wrong memories or something like that. I mean, it's
absolutely.
yeah.
Well, and the other thing that we have to remember is this is Jamie in the future telling this story from the past. So this is a Jamie that's telling this story from the narrative, is a Jamie that's no longer traveling with the Doctor. He's been hit by lightning, and this is one of the memories that's coming up. So we have to presume that after he travels with the Doctor for season 6B, his memories are wiped again. So there's obviously a little bit of that going on the back end of this as well. And there may be some misremembering based on the fact that it's being told from the perspective of an older Jamie, remembering an adventure when he was younger with the Doctor. So that could easily explain away a lot of the things, inconsistencies as well.
Okay, so now I really want to do an infograph, Glenn, right up your alley. I want to do a comparison. Number of times the second Doctor and or Jamie companion have had their memory wiped compared to how many times the eighth Doctor has gotten amnesia.
Oh, the eighth Doctor still got him by a long way. Because you've got all the eighth Doctor audios, you've got all the eighth Doctor books, you've got all the eighth Doctor. I mean, the movie itself is one count. So now I think we're still a long way off. We may get there eventually, but we're still a long way off.
Start tracking that now, so that when we get down the road, I think you might be surprised. It might be close.
It depends on how you count them.
That's just it.
You got to spin the numbers right, Sean.
Yeah. But overall, this is what it is. I mean, it's not. I don't hate this story. It's a story. It's there. It's not bad. It's very middling and very slow at times.
Yeah.
But it's not an hour wasted. It's just a hour that I probably wouldn't take off again for another 13 years. So.
Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it. It's okay.
So we move on to the next one. The short story called Twin Peaks, which is found in Short Trips 1.3 of Short Trips Zodiac.
I don't have a synopsis for this.
Yeah, there's a summary, but it's really long. So
it's
we'll
literally a summary of the story.
Sean, what'd you think of this one?
Okay, I'm going to have to confess.
You didn't read it?
I read them.
Oh, okay.
I read them. I don't know that I remember which one is.
Oh,
which.
Okay. This is the one with
somebody give me. I don't need a synopsis, but just give me.
This is the one with the two planets where they've installed.
And the brothers.
They've installed the king at the one location.
Oh,
they get in the TARDIS. Okay. They land again in the presumed future of where they just left, and find out that the king that they deposed is actually now the king that's on the throne, and they're being credited for helping put him in power.
And everyone's happy about it.
And everybody's happy about it.
Okay, so
Go ahead, Sean. What do you think of this? Because if you're like me, there are a lot of plot holes in this.
This is one of those that I think probably on paper, when initially conceptualized, seemed like a cool idea. Okay? This needed to spend a lot more time in the back of RTD's head.
Yep.
Because ultimately what it boils down to is, well, there is the probability that another planet exists just like this one, with duplicated people on it as well, and slightly different outcome. That's what this one boils down to, and we keep bouncing back and forth between these two, and it's like, okay, even if we're not going to go to an alternate universe, or we're not going to do a parallel, that it just happens to be a duplicated planet. Okay, that's kind of a cool idea. I want more.
Well, we'd have been
to hang that on.
We'd have been a lot better
really
off.
did need to be like a mirror universe.
Yep, we'd have been a lot better off. And the biggest glaring problem with this is, and they sort of try to leave this as the dun 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 what if ending kind of thing, but the biggest glaring point of this is, if it's a doppelganger world and there are two of them, and they are exactly the same except for this particular course of history played out differently. They both believe that the Doctor and Jamie were the ones that helped, but the Doctor and Jamie don't recall doing the world that the second world they ended up to. So who did that? Who put that in? Who put those in motions? You have to assume then there must be a doppelganger Doctor and Jamie running around out there. And for me, that doesn't work unless it's a multi-universe story or a multiverse story.
Yep.
And they even address it.
Right.
They even address it at the end. And try to write it off as maybe we're going. Sure.
Exactly. And that's the big problem too, because they leave it for such a long time. And so you're sitting there almost yelling at the book. You really need to think about this, because you're a lot smarter than this, especially the Doctor. And when Jamie seems to be hinting at it more than the Doctor is, then you've got a problem, because it's making Jamie as a companion a much, much smarter person than the Doctor realizing it. He already has a lot of moments where he's questioning the Doctor and questioning him in the right way. Jamie's actually thinking about the ramifications or what's happening more than the Doctor. And I think mostly because the writer is taking it more from the perspective of Jamie, and that might be the way it comes across that way, why it becomes across that way. But he's questioning more than the Doctor is, and I'm yelling at the book going, you really ought to be thinking about this part. You're not thinking about this. You need to address this. And then, yeah, as you said, Keith, they saved that for the end to make it sound like, well, perhaps we'll do it in the future. And then to me, that's lazy writing, because it's like, oh, I wanted to give you something to think about, but I'm really not putting any closure on this story at all. And that was frustrating.
Yeah, the Doctor was way too blasé-faire about the entire thing. For such a rare event, if this is that rare but plausible, he should have been much more excited by it.
Yeah.
He should have been much more energized. He should have been much more engaged with the goings on. And as you pointed out, the very nature that we've installed one good king, one bad king, but everything still seems to be working out okay, which is kind of a weird, because again, we're not opposites. It's not that this is everything's gone to hell world. It's, yeah, everything's pretty good. Everybody's happy about this dictator. Maybe he's not a dictator. Well, then why is there a difference?
Right.
What is the driving oomph behind this anyway?
Right.
Because you've established now that it's not the fact that they're parallel or similar worlds. Because, well, we didn't get excited.
A mirror world is what they are.
Yeah, I mean, but they're not. They're just kind of.
The brothers are mirror.
The brothers are mirrors, but then why?
Although then,
else?
even once they bring the two good brothers together, it almost comes across as, well, neither of them are really evil. They're just brothers, and they fight because they're brothers.
It winds up being much ado about nothing.
Well, let me ask you this.
Nothing happened.
Let me ask you this, because this wasn't quite clear to me, and I think I assumed this was the way it happened. But they went and got the brother from the other doppelganger world, right? And brought him to this one, to Gavin on this one, right?
Right.
Yes, they got the good. They got the good ruler. Both good rulers.
Both good rulers
together.
from both locations together. Okay, gotcha.
And it does make you wonder how bad the other ruler actually was.
Well, it makes you wonder what was the point of doing that. Because if there were these two different doppelganger worlds and they were going along happy as can be, what was the point of bringing the brothers together? What was the point of bringing the good brothers
trying
together?
to resolve it?
Exactly. I mean, it doesn't really resolve anything.
Because there's really nothing to resolve.
Right.
Yeah, it's literally much ado about nothing.
Yeah, and
because
it just hung
we've
out
set up
there.
several different ideas that all could have been interesting to pursue, but we don't go after any of them, and then we give you this very lame, weak-ass, oh, well, they're brothers. Who cares then?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
there's nothing that happened that warranted any of this running about at that point. It's just, oh, well, que sera, sera. It's like, no, that's not why I watch Doctor Who.
Yep.
It's not why I read Doctor Who.
Well, maybe third time will be a charm. Should we do the Revolutionaries? Also,
I don't have a synopsis.
Also, no
for
synopsis,
this.
right? But this is the one where Jamie and the Doctor end up in Revolutionary wartime, American Revolutionary wartime in Trenton, New Jersey, and get immediately thrown in jail and meet some time travelers who have screwed things up. Sean, Keith, I apologize, but I'm gonna let him go first again because I really want to see what he thinks on this one.
It would be easy to lump this into that kind of same category as, because it's just kind of a goofy little short story, but it's a goofy little short story that's set at Christmas.
Yep, that was going to be my defense. I thought for sure you were going to say, and yet another one of these stories, but I was going to come back and say, yeah, but it's at Christmas, so it's okay.
That's kind of the saving grace. The fact that it is set at Christmas, I was kind of scowling as I was reading it and being very, oh, come on. Because it really does. I don't mean to disrespect the authors, but it kind of comes across as poorly written fan fiction.
Yeah.
But then,
it's very
Christmas
trope.
tale.
It's very trope.
It's very trope.
Yeah.
The fact that it is a Christmas tale, if you put it in that mindset of, oh, it's an RTD Christmas story, then all of a sudden it's like, okay. Just go have fun with it. And this happened before that happened, and Washington was there. Okay.
It's for the same reason that Twice Upon a Time is not a really good story, but it's set at Christmas, so it improves it so much more.
Yeah.
You're willing to let it go.
For the exact same reason.
Exactly.
And the only problem I really had with the story was the fact that they don't really address how the two time travelers screwed things up so badly. That is the one piece of information I wanted to know and wanted to actually learn a little bit more about, even if it was just a couple of drop lines of how they interfered and got Washington thrown in jail, and a better explanation afterwards of how history rewrites itself around that sort of misstep. Like, I think they could have written an explanation moving towards him being in jail that could have actually made the time rewriting or history resetting itself make more sense, other than just saying it's gonna happen.
Yeah,
it's going to be remembered wrong.
It's funny that you say that because I agree with. I was with you for the second part of that I wanted to know more why the Doctor's doing rewrites history correctly. I mean, they just have that throwaway line that, well, people tend to forget or people tend to remember things the way that they actually happen. I was some weird way he explained it. Anyway, I felt the same way. I didn't think about, until you just brought it up and now it's bothering me, I didn't think about them not really explaining what the time travelers did to interrupt the flow of time. I just think I assumed by the nature of them being there and observing messed things up. But you're right. They don't really make it clear enough what they did in order to set things awry and get him arrested. So now it bothers me even more that you've brought it up.
I tell you, the one thing that bothers me is the fact that we're going to do a story about Washington on Christmas Day, but not have him in the boat.
Well, presumably,
that
happened.
Actually, somewhat clever.
No, you got to do the boat.
Presumably, though, that already happened. They already came across the Potomac.
I know,
and they were
but
captured when they got
moment.
there. Well, yeah.
That's there's paintings, and there he is on the boat with the flag and the guys, and we're sneaking across to go do something horrible because we're Americans. That's the moment that you got to capture. And if you're going to visit, how do you visit a historical moment? Pick a moment in history. We're not going to cover that.
I was
go over here on this side of town.
Okay, so I was about to defend John S. Drew, the author of this story. I was about to say, well, it's probably because he's a Brit, so that's not so iconic to him. But then I looked him up, and it says John S. Drew is an American writer who has written several Doctor Who short stories.
Maybe he was mad because he's a Brit.
So I can't even defend him being being a Brit because he's actually an American writer.
I just,
And his explanation at the end of, they'll remember it differently. If he had written that part better, and fleshed out they still landed and this happened and this happened, and it could have worked.
Yeah.
But because he didn't flesh any of that out, it just falls apart.
Yeah.
Also, I think that the thing that he did, that the author does to cheat a little bit too, is to take the Doctor out of the situation, to take the Doctor away from the reader, and fix things off story, and then to come
we
back.
We don't even know how he does it.
Yeah, and then come back and just say it's fixed. I think that's a little bit of a cheat as well.
And it's still not clear how
I'll
I still
explain
don't
later.
understand how they fixed it.
Well, he can. The way I took it, he
convinced them to go celebrate Christmas and unlock themselves.
He convinced the Hessians that the American or the Washington's army wasn't that much of a threat, and that there weren't more coming, and that they didn't need to call reinforcements, which is what they were initially going to do, because they thought they've captured Washington. There might be more coming. The Doctor intercedes and convinces the Hessians that, hey, no, they're not. You've got the guy. This is all okay. Go over and celebrate Christmas, and rest on your laurels because you guys have done a good job. That's what he implies that he did. It's just, unfortunately, it's all done off story, so he has to come back and kind of vaguely convey what he did. And I have to interpret more than probably I need to be interpreting, I suppose. I mean, that's the way I got it. That's what I took from it.
That makes sense, but not well explained.
No, you're right. No, absolutely.
I still feel like, this is like an episode of Futurama deciding that we're going to time travel back to New Year's Day or New Year's Eve on the year 2000 when Fry gets frozen, but we're not going to go visit Fry in that place. We're going to be on the other side of town doing something else. Then why are we at this date? We know what the important thing that's going on this date is, right? It's like setting the thing in the Back to the Future. Well, maybe you want to witness this. Yeah, but you got to drive there. Come on, Doc. Not the same. I don't know. That was the big, but it's a Christmas special, so I'm going to let it go.
Yeah.
And just say, for what it was mildly enjoyable and a little goofy, and I had fun with it.
Yep. And it's kind of sad that all you have to do is paint it with a Christmas brush, and it makes it so much better.
But that is what you need to do with it.
Yeah,
paint it with a Christmas brush. Christmas makes everything better.
All in all, none of these three stories were bad stories. They just they have problematic issues with them. And unfortunately, we got three together, and I'm hoping that we don't continue this pattern of getting got chunks of these going, okay, that was just a okay story. I don't know. We'll see where
it's kind of a lackluster start to the new year, Glenn.
Right,
not gonna lie.
right.
You're not instilling me with a lot of confidence here, Doc.
Well, that being said, what do we got coming up on the schedule?
Well, hopefully something better. We're going to jump from the second Doctor to the eighth Doctor. Have some more eighth Doctor adventures, starting with another short trip from the Zodiac collection, The True and Indisputable Facts in the Matter of the Ram's Skull, which is a great title. I'm intrigued, so we'll say that. And then back into the Eighth Doctor Series 4, specifically Episode 3, with Nevermore. And I am so looking forward to getting back into these because it's been far too long. After that, we start a new kind of concept episode for us. Lost Media, Lost Stories, What Never Was, What Could Have Been. And this will involve a lost radio program pilot written by Malcolm Hulke called Doctor Who Journey into Time. And then various versions of it, the script, the radio show, and the audio drama that came out of that, fan recreation of the audio drama that came out of that. And more things to come. Obviously, new year, new stuff.
Right.
But we'll also be going back and looking at some old favorites. So stay with us, true believers.
I should back up real quick. Just back to our season 6 discussion. I think we should mention for people that might be following along, between Helicon Prime and Twin Peaks was the Nameless City would have fallen. And the reason we didn't do this is because this is the Puff and E short from the 50th anniversary. And we've already reviewed that. In fact, if you want to hear what we thought of that, we reviewed that in Traveling the Vortex, episode 166.
Wow.
Yeah, a long time ago. All right. And of course, if you get any value out of this podcast, why not consider putting some value back into it? We really would like you to become a patron of the podcast. You can do that by clicking on our Patreon link and consider supporting us there. When you become a patron of the podcast, you unlock some more audios and specials from us. Also, please consider giving us a 5-star review wherever you subscribe to the podcast. It helps bump us up in the ratings. And of course, you can follow us on the various forms of social media. We are on Facebook. We are on X, formerly known as Twitter, and we are on TikTok and Instagram and Tumblr. I actually revived our Tumblr page recently. So,
can we just make the executive decision to keep dead naming it Twitter?
Yeah, there's something about that, because I think if, as a society, if we could all just agree with that, I would be fine with that. We've still got so much of society that wanting to push that X thing, and I don't know. I don't get it. Maybe
we
now we'll just say Twitter.
Got the official edict that we need to change all of our graphics.
Oh,
like they did on the newscasts,
yeah.
But the online stuff has kind of still been lingering on.
Yeah.
And somebody made the executive decision that no, it all has to be uniform across the board. So now I'm the one that has to come up with new graphics for it. So I'm a little salty about it anyway. But
it's personal.
Yeah.
Thanks for creating more work for me, Elon.
I'm with you though. I every time I write a news story, I have to put so and so posted on X, formerly known as Twitter. I just don't know how long that's going to last.
the agent or the artist formerly known as Prince,
right?
It's just all over again.
Yep. At least this one has a name we can pronounce.
Symbol you can pronounce.
It's not just a symbol, although it kind of is too. But anything else we need to touch on before we close this one out? If not, until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
Thanks for listening. Jinx, you owe me a Coke.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.
Direction point! Direction point!
A Doctor Who podcast network.